Hello, everyone. We have a little bit of delay and a couple of changes in the program, but this is the last session before we're going to wrap up this two-day conference. So let's start with extremely interesting lighting talks. We're going to have four super interesting presentations, and we're going to start with 3D big data space. So I would like to welcome Sander Münster to the stage, a junior professor for digital humanities at Friedrich Schiller University Jena. And Sander will present the 3D Big Data Space project, which aims to make leverage accessibility and usability of 3D data for cultural heritage, and hopefully bring 50,000 high-quality 3D models into European data space for cultural heritage. So, Sander, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, many thanks for introducing it. I promise to not exceeding 13 minutes, so let me start my counter now. And introducing to you, nope, maybe not that one, but this one, 3D Big Data Space. Just as a big small background, so that is one of the Digital Europe projects that calls specifically on AI and data for, of course, providing additional content to the data space. We started in February this year, and you see our nice lineup of partners we are having with us. Just in a nutshell, the ambition is, could we bring 50,000 plus 3D models in the data space at this point? But also one thing we are very much testing at the moment. So we have heard lots of these challenges where to storing these different 3D data sets. So that's one of the things we are targeting. And of course, it's very much also how could we enrich data quality, how could we assess also data quality specifically for these large-scale data amounts, and finally have viewable solutions like this one here. So that is one of the, I may reveal it at the moment, the currently 75,000 3D mesh models we are having in our repository, and that is what is shown here in this holopyramid device. To show now a brief video about what we are doing. Let me keep on for a second. So I think that may give you a bit an impression about what we are working on, what we are doing here. And now let's have maybe a quick look in some of the facets of the project. Let's start with data. So for us, the idea is we are having really fascinating data sets out there, and specifically there has been collected multiple 3D scans, reconstructions, etc. from all over Europe, but also all over the world. The interesting and challenging part is that these data sets are already, I would say, have been collected and compiled into different large-scale data sets, specifically for 3D and AI training. But also, besides that, we are having lots of curated data sets which are untapped at the moment, not in Europeana at the moment. Our main idea is, could we connect to these data sets and ingest and bring these data sets, I would say, on a fabric and select those ones who are fitting maybe in a search profile of Europeana. At this stage, we are working with an initial set of these 75,000 3D models. We are now starting to retrieve a larger data set of several million objects. Of course, not all of these several million objects are cultural heritage objects, but that is something of the work in progress to select those ones who are fitting in this selection and usage stage. How are we processing these things? So at the moment, it's very much about creating model derivatives, specifically for those scan data which are point clouds, for high resolution data, to have some fewer compatible lower resolution derivatives on these things, but also to learning about categories where these objects are falling into, and specifically retrieving information about the location. So where is this object placed? What is this? How could we enrich it in a way of a memory twin with, I would say, these additional information about the origins, the creation process, and the object itself. For us, one of our main attempts is to cooperating with the CERN, specifically this Commission-funded EU infrastructure Zenodo. So that is a research data repository in that case. And what we have developed and currently using very much is a pipeline which is able to creating storage entries at Zenodo automatically, also creating DOIs for these things, but also doing some, I would say, enrichment stages. So for instance, using some LLM and vision to language models in order to retrieving locations, to classifying objects, etc. And finally coming out with these EDM records to be ingestible into Europeana. Current set is that we have done this for 130,000 data sets so far. So half of them are 3D objects, other half are image data, and so on. And now, of course, continuing with also some larger data to process. One thing which we did as one of these, I would say, activities within was also to checking what are these types of objects. Sorry for having said that tiny, but I can explain at least these largest points here. So that is something where we are doing now for a bit benchmarking and for assessing specifically how these automated retrieval pipelines are working. So one thing, for instance, for defining and retrieving object categories. In that case, you see image description, image keywords, description to keywords. That is something where we are testing various frameworks for vision to language, language to language, also comparisons for examining what are categories these 3D mesh objects are falling into. Same situation for finding information about places. So again, that was something where we are trained and processed the Europeana 3D data set we have at the moment. And we used different large-scale language models specifically to retrieving information about places, about locations, etc. from these descriptions, captions. Now we are starting to doing it also from the images of these things. Interesting thing is that also I would say for these descriptions where is a very nice retrieval rate, so over 80% could be retrieved by LLMs, but there is also a very nice or a very impressive split between the type and the, I would say, scaling of these models which are used, you see of course with some high parameter sets which are performing much better than these lower parameter and compressed or distilled models. What are we doing at the front-end side? So as initially shown in the video, the idea is to having a viewer capable to visualizing the full set of models in IDEAL on different modes. So the pyramid, for instance, but let me switch to that one. Also having location-based 4D viewers in that way, having augmented reality representations, but also the multi-touch. Please feel most invited to visit our booth to testing this out. Outreach applications. At the one hand, we are cooperating with colleagues from Vigo, who in a previous project did already collect information about cultural heritage roots in that way. And that is something where we are, of course, very much keen on how could we enrich and represent these things in a 3D space. In that case, for having a digital companion for these digital roots in order to guiding visitors, pilgrims on their way to Santiago, Rome or somewhere else. Another outreach scenario.
Das für Jena bewegen und wir wollen was Tolles schaffen. Die RUM AG zeichnete sich vor allen Dingen für die Visualisierung der Saurier verantwortlich. Das heißt, wir haben die 3D-Modelle erstellt, wir haben darüber hinaus die komplette Technik gestellt und auch die App entwickelt und der App die Gestalt und die Oberfläche verliehen.
Das ist Saurier, die Kynodon. Aber lasst euch nicht täuschen. Einige seiner Nach...
Show to your kids how it looked 50 years, no, much longer ago. What we also do is to cooperating with other projects for testing. So today a lab test is starting in Amsterdam, where specifically the effect of these, I would say, 3D representations and the different modes of presentation are assessed from cognitive psychology perspective. And finally, we are having, as Time Machine organization, a network of currently 85 so-called local time machines, regional local networks, and we are working with these networks for gathering data, for testing the experiences. For instance, in image contests, so that is something where citizens are rephotographing historic sites in their city and contributing therefore also I would say geocoded content, geocoded images to a database in order to providing also AI training data. And one last thing to mention here is also to having some school courses. So that's something where pupils, for instance, using very easy to use digitizing tools for creating content, digitizing monuments, but also describing sites in their city for other kids. So having virtual tours, what would you like to show to other kids if they are visiting your city? And that is something with very nice results and also very nice feedback from the kids. And finally, my very last 55 seconds. Just a thing for those one who are having data, 3D data, but also wanted to bringing it into such an endeavor. Please be aware, I didn't notice this before, 13th of June, so there is an extended deadline at the moment. 2 digitization projects to be selected as part of this project for collecting, gathering 3D data. I hope I'm in my time. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sander. That was very impressive. As you mentioned, there is a booth for 3D Big Data space, so if anyone wants to chat later, that's possible. And also at the end of all the lightning talks, we're going to have time for questions. So please put your questions in the Q&A for the online people. And for the, we're going to do it also in-house session. Thank you so much. Okay, now let's move to our second talk. And I would like to welcome now Dieter Suls, coordinator at MoMu, the Fashion Museum of Antwerpen. And Dieter is now leading Museum Monitoring Tool, a project transforming environmental sensor data into linked open data. And he will share with us his approach. Can we click it? Oh, there's one more slide again. Perfect. Now you're here. So yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Something completely different now. Heritage data doesn't only consist of object-related data. We also have a lot of sensor data that we work with that teaches us a lot of things about our heritage. The whole starting point for our project, because it's a bit of an absurd idea that a museum starts to develop their own database, their own data logging devices and data space. But the whole thing was triggered by a call for tender a couple of years ago. We moved our collection to an external storage space. And we couldn't read our data logging system, which was still, let's say, manually read before. So we needed to do a call for tender for a new system, which allowed for remote access of data. But it was an expensive system. So if you think about 20 nodes, gateway licenses of the software, you easily have over 20K of budget necessary. There were also some other things that we did that I didn't like about the whole idea. It was difficult to set up. There was also a black box approach, while we were more advocating for open source solutions. Functionalities are quite limited of the system, and in the end you get a new data silo with poor metadata. So why not reinvent the wheel? We did it in a couple of phases, first as a hobby thing, and then in different stages going through larger and larger projects. First we had to overcome the idea if there's a logical problem. So can we solve a problem that let's say the functionalities of the data logging system, a professional data logging system, doesn't allow us to do. So we started to experiment a bit with Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, LoRa communication, and our idea was, can we make something, a prototype, a proof of concept that allows us to look at allows us to look remotely to temperature, humidity, lighting conditions, but also can we have snapshots of our insect traps? We're a fashion museum, so moths are quite stressful insect for us. So we have moth traps, and can we have let's say a snapshot on a daily basis of a moth trap by a camera? So it proved out to be possible. So we thought, let's take it a step further and let's go from agile methodology. For two reasons that's important. First of all, it allows us to let's say, assemble stakeholders and let's have interactive sessions in which we, let's say, define functionalities, validate them with the group, redevelop them if they're not okay. So that was a very flexible way to work with. And the other thing is it allows us to go in a small possible but significant steps. So from, let's say, a very strange-looking cyclope, we ended up, together with the University of Antwerp, very small-scale project in which we had a functioning system, a functioning prototype, until we reached this point. So we're currently here now. So this is, I have it here with me. We have developed our own hardware, open source, and so yeah, this is the chip, the processing units, and what it does is, let's say, it's there the operating of the whole device takes place, and it translates a measurement of a sensor as a LoRaWAN signal, and LoRaWAN is a communication platform that is completely the opposite of Wi-Fi. So if you have a Wi-Fi signal, it's you have to be quite close to your hotspot. It also consumes a lot of energy, but it can transfer a lot of data. While if we look at our own system that we have now, is completely the opposite. So a signal can travel really far. It consumes very little energy. So the idea is that we could have something operated by a battery for over a year. Functioning, but it can contain very little information. But in the end, measurement of a temperature is like a couple of bytes of data, so it's not that important. And then, yeah, What's also important is here, there are some open slots here, so you can also plug in other sensors. On the back end of this, this PCB, this is what you see here. There's a temperature and humidity sensor and a lux sensor. And then here is a connector for the e-paper display. Whole thing is rechargeable. And we shared everything online, so it's for everybody to use or to remake themselves. Communication. So the device. This is our nodes. Communicates with a gateway that's connected to the internet. It transmits a signal. The signal is received by the gateway that's connected to the internet, and then forwards the signal that's also encrypted and then decrypted to a dashboard that we also developed ourselves. But our project had two important components. First of all, can we develop hardware? And then second, is there an option to make a data space out of this? Because in the end result of this is too poor as a metadata to really speak about a data space. So we aligned ourselves to an initiative of the Flemish government, which was called the Smart Data Space for Government Information. And the idea of a data space is that you have data that's interoperable, so you need to standardize everything. It has to be scalable, so it has to work also when you have 1 million of measurements, not just, let's say, visualize the last 3 months of data. It's also important that you can set it up in a decentralized way. You provide access to it, and it has to be done in a safe, sustainable way. Also allowing to develop, allows to have an ecosystem of new applications developed on top of it. So now we go to the rest of the pipeline. So once a measurement of a node is received, you can visualize it in the dashboard. But what we also do is we try to structure the data according to a data model, a specified data model that was also specified by the Flemish government. And it's not just a matter of let's say, reformulating it. It's also about how is the logic of a measurement? What is the logic? So you have an observation. It's from a sensor. It's on a platform. So the whole logic behind it has to be coherent. And then once the data is let's say structured according to the right data model, it becomes published as a linked data stream. So the data is also, let's say, reachable as linked data, standardized interoperable data, and it streams. And what we also looked at is the whole safety access issue. So we use Solid, which is like an open standard for digital identities, data, applications that's promoted by Tim Berners-Lee or is developed by Tim Berners-Lee. And we use the Solid standard to, let's say, to tap in to the stream and give you the data that you want or you can have to see. So that way it also becomes decentralized. So we are currently now at the end of, let's say, almost the end of phase 3 of this project. So currently we are working on a new version of our hardware, which has some increased functionalities because, of course, if you have a agile approach and you have a lot of people defining which is your product, you also have to adjust constantly. And the idea is to optimize this device also for loans, museum loans, so that it can travel, it can capture more data. You can also interact with it and say, okay, this is a moment where it was positioned in a museum. So there's also a button, or sorry. There's also, see there's a button there. We are also working on a case for machine learning. So here there's a connector that allows you to connect different sensors to it. And we are currently experimenting with machine learning gas recognition. So we also developed a new device. And by the end of this project, we want to have, let's say, a proof of concept in which we recognize a gas and connect it to our nodes. We're also working on interoperability, so leverage the interoperability by aggregating multiple data streams from different origins, but also integrating data streams with collection management. So, for example, if you want to know what happened with your wooden objects from a, let's say, climate control point of view, that those kind of questions can be asked to your system. And then also look for new partnerships, sustainability of the whole initiative. So if you want to know more about it, there's a GitHub link underneath. There are multiple repositories connected to this project. And I invite you to have a look at it. And yeah, if you want to know more, I have a couple examples with me, so okay. Yep.
Thank you so much, Dieter. You're perfectly on time, by the way, so like that doesn't happen always. And thank you for this presentation. It's always fascinating for me as a person that works with digital objects constantly to hear about museums using and what enormous knowledge you can get from environmental data. So very happy to hear from you. And now let's move to our next presenters. And I would like to welcome Tugce Karatas, Head of Digital Research Infrastructure at the University of Luxembourg, and Mariana Ziku, Research Associate at Web2Learn. And together they will present AISTER, the project that aims to enhance the capacities of European universities in artificial intelligence. And human participation for cultural heritage safeguarding in emergency. I stopped myself in the middle of the sentence. I was like, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Together with Mariana, today we will talk about the AISTER. So it's not advanced as the other projects that we saw, so bear with us. But before, at the end of the day, I'm afraid I will just like invite you to, if we can go to the next slide, to participate interactive quiz with me. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I expect everything from. Sorry. So if you can answer some questions, we would like to know you more. And it's also important for us to, when we talk about the AI, like during these 2 days as well. So there's also the fear, but also the opportunities. So it's kind of like a way to also discuss and see what is your opinion on the certain implications. So we have a couple of questions. So I will continue to ask, like, for example, do you use generative AI? So it's something that like I expect to see quite a lot of yes. So yeah, 80%, 83. Yeah. There's only one person that doesn't, believe in AI. Nice. Okay. Yeah, 90% yes. And so if you use it, which provider that you are using? So like it can be the certain LLM or some like tools like Cloud or Gemini, Anthropic. Yeah, we have Gemini, ChatGPT, of course. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, like in your profession, what kind of skills do you need or you might need to use these AI tools? So, if you need any, of course. It's an open question, so yeah, better prompt building, yeah. Yeah, of course, yeah. We don't know what we know also, yeah, right. We don't know what we don't know as well, yeah. It's critical thinking, of course, yeah. I'm expecting also, if there's a historian in the room, I'm expecting source criticism. No, okay. Okay, critical analysis, research, testing ideas, yeah. asking the questions for the better answers also. Yeah. The next question, that like your perception about the AI, particularly in the cultural heritage and the preservation of the cultural heritage. So do you like feel that it can help, or it's just like the hype, or it's you don't have any like positive or negative, it's just a neutral?
Of course, AI is not neutral. And
Okay. Yeah. I'm
really
not.
strongly that.
Yeah, I think you can add some comments, or maybe you cannot.
Not on this.
Which note is on this slide? Okay, I'm gonna take the notes. All right, I think we are approaching towards the end, and yes, the ethical concerns. I think it's also some kind of related with the comments and discussions that we were seeing throughout the event as well in 2 days. Okay. Yes. So, what are the biggest risks of AI tools applied to the cultural heritage? You can, yeah. Okay, this information. All right. Yeah, and also how AI can be utilized to preserve, especially like intangible heritage. So it's a bit tricky. You can also say this like tangible cultural heritage, but kind of like it gives you also a little bit hint about our presentation. So while I leave you to think about the last question, I think we can also go on. I can. Yes, about the AISTER project. So it's about us now. Sorry, and if we can play the video, there's also the sound, if it's possible.
In times of crisis, culture becomes more than history. It becomes identity, memory, and resilience. AISTER is an Erasmus Plus project enhancing the capacity of higher education using artificial intelligence and citizen science to protect and safeguard Ukrainian cultural heritage. Coordinated by the C2DH, Center for Contemporary and Digital History at the University of Luxembourg, the project brings together a dynamic consortium: Europeana, Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev, University of Latvia, and Web2Learn. Together, we're co-developing ethical frameworks, digital tools, and interdisciplinary teaching methods, bridging the fields of computer science, social sciences, and cultural heritage. Through workshops, expert roundtables, and a hackathon focused on AI for 3D cultural heritage, AISTER empowers students and citizens to participate meaningfully in protecting heritage under threat. AISTER investigates how artificial intelligence and citizen participation can be leveraged to effectively safeguard and digitally preserve Ukrainian cultural heritage amid geopolitical and technological challenges, bringing people and technology together in the service of memory, history, and citizen science. Join us in reimagining how we safeguard cultural heritage in the age of AI together. Learn more at www.aister.uni.lu.
Talking about AISTER, I think I can just probably go to the next slide somehow.
In times of crisis, culture becomes more...
So, yeah. So, as I told before, the project just started the beginning of February, and Erasmus Plus founded projects. It will finish in May 2027, and it is not a research project, so we have 5 partners, and it's based on the mobility trainings, capacity building, and also very much the field research. I think like also the desktop research, but like a kind of like technical and practical perspective. We have Taras Shevchenko National University from Kiev, University of Latvia as us as University of Luxembourg as the higher education partners, and also Europeana and Web2Learn to help us to design these trainings and education, digital education, let's say trainings and content. And as you heard throughout the video, which was generated, of course, by AI, so it's kind of an interdisciplinary approach to the computer science, cultural heritage, and the social science. And also, just to give you a little bit of glimpse on what we are trying to achieve, is that like we are not looking for high-tech, cutting-edge AI tools and methodologies, but it's more like from the citizen engagement perspective, and also considering the ethical and policies and standardizations and the guidelines. We are trying to create something more like robust in sense of the community-driven projects, and also many of our, maybe I have the events are based around these topics, and we have like we just finished the expert roundtables. So it one of them was in computer science, especially in the AI methodologies and tools, and then the other one was the digital education, and then the third one was the citizen science and tangible cultural heritage, intangible cultural heritage. And what we are trying to do is, like, as you can see, there are so many events in the pipeline. So what we will do is, like, putting the community at the heart of our events, try to create also the ethical guidelines, and also like open access publishing on the findings, as well as the many of our trainings. And also like the hackathon AI for 3D cultural heritage, not reinventing the wheel, but also something that like to see how we can also contribute from the perspective of AISTER, and also like giving you the timeline a little bit. So we finished the expert roundtables now, and we are in the middle of writing this the report on the landscape analysis. Like again, this like not reinventing the wheel, but kind of like analyzing what is in the cultural heritage field, especially using the AI typologies, models, and ethical, of course, policies. And also we will soon also announce our hackathon in November. So talking about the landscape analysis, I will give the floor to Mariana to talk about what we like, how we use these tools and the methodologies, and what was the key findings, what were the key findings from your research.
Thank you, and I guess we have only 2 minutes or less, so I'm going to be quick. So we did a landscape analysis based on trying to create an inventory of projects that are the selection criteria where they had to have any kind of an AI component. They had to have any kind of a participatory component, so engage citizens beyond the simple end user status. Of course, being in the field of cultural heritage, and at a broad cover the at-risk heritage. So based on that, we created an inventory of 55 European and global projects, and we managed to create a list of 22 final projects. Here is the typologies that we used actually to categorize these projects and later to analyze them. So these typologies, you may see that these are classification schemes, principles, models that we have been using. For example, for trying to assess the ethical AI or the AI readiness level of these projects. And then we ran a few visualizations. We did the data pivoting on Tableau software, and we tried to create descriptive statistics and exploratory data analysis. And the most interesting findings were when we did cross-tabulation analysis. So here you can see a project-based view of these projects, and this is also a call. So if you have been, if you know or if you have been engaged in projects that implement AI and also have a citizen engagement aspect, please let us know, because this is an open report and an open, let's say, yes, web data processing. So we might include you in the inventory and data process it to assess it. So here you see several of the visualizations. They are interactive, and actually they can be accessed through the QR code link that you will find at the end. Each one of them gives a view of the mouse tooltip if you hover over it. And looking at that, I might turn to you. I think we ran out of time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yes, I think we can.
Yes, just for the key findings, what we found out until now is that, for example, there is a need for promoting open licenses in several of the open source software used in these projects, specifically for natural language processing and for machine vision. There is a need for building cross-sector capacity, especially for government and industry partners, and for them to apply ethical AI, like practical ethical AI, and of course also trying to provide more co-created and collaborative projects using artificial intelligence, because most of them, they are still only contributory.
I think we finish by saying the next step. So yeah, just call to action from Mariana that we are building this open access repository and the report. So there will be the ethical framework coming up in the following months, and then the hackathon, and hopefully we will also produce a manifesto of AISTER about the ethical AI and cultural heritage. Thank you very much. I think we are on time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tugce and Mariana. I'm very curious about your results. But yes, we are a little bit low on time, so I'm going to ask our final speaker to come to the stage. And please welcome Anna Johansson, founder and CEO of MagnificentH, an innovative platform that empowers users to create and explore digital micro-museums. And Anu, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So as you said, this is the last session of the last session. So I hope it will be magnificent. So yes, MagnificentH is the name of the platform which I'm currently developing together with my team. MagnificentH, it's for all the magnificent places and stories that are not yet told, but that deserve to be told, and the H is of course for the heritage. And the platform is already live. It's in its very first version. We are developing the features while we are testing what the users want to have, what are the kind of features that the creators want to use, that the museums want to use, that the experts want to use, and also what the public want to see. Really the idea stems from my own need. I was a frequent user of social media platforms. I used to look a lot at Instagram, not that much at Facebook. I'm still using Pinterest, and whenever I found something interesting on Pinterest, I always was missing, a more contextual information. I wanted to get more. It was just not only just the inspiration, but I wanted to understand, what's the historical style behind, where can I find it, what are the different, techniques to find the same style or something. So, I think that there is definitely a need for an audience like me, the audience looking for more contextual inspiration and an alternative to mainstream social media. So when I started to work on my idea, it always starts with something. It started with me being very disappointed with Pinterest. Thank you. It started with me being very disappointed with Pinterest, and I wanted to have, something more contextual. And then, obviously, I was reading the newspapers, and I came across some articles, and it was quotations by these two men. Charles Michel was the former president of the European Council. And the other person is the CEO of a Swedish telecom company called Ericsson. And these articles basically were quoting them saying, Europe is becoming the world's best museum. We have great food, great wine, architecture, but there's no innovation left. And what they were referring to was the fact that, there are so many regulations in Europe, and that's killing innovation. All innovation is coming from the US, but we need to start relaxing on all the regulations to actually spark innovation. And as a side note, I can tell you that my background is in law. I've been working as a lawyer in finance, even worse, taxation, for more than 20 years, and I quit. And I quit because the compliance was just not killing the joy. So that could really resonate with me. But at the same time, being European myself and being very passionate about architecture and the wine and the food, I thought there has to be something that we can do about all the beautiful assets that Europe has to offer. And when you think about it, that's our competitive edge. There's no other continent that can compete with all the cultural experiences that we can see and find in Europe. So that's the background. So, as I said, I think that Europe can spark innovation, and we can spark innovation in the museum space as well. And when you think about it, there are so many formats of culture that have undergone not only innovation, but they have been completely disrupted. And the way these formats of culture have been consumed in the past are completely different to how they are being consumed today. I have two girls, and they're 11 and 13, and when I say, let's watch TV, they don't know what TV is because they watch YouTube. We all use Spotify. I think many of us remember, using cassettes, vinyls, and so on. We still go to cinema to watch the movies, but many of us stay at home to see, HBO Max and Netflix. And also there are some new media channels changing the way we are consuming magazines. So there's an app called Flipboard. Medium is another one, and there's some more examples. So my point here is that museums, there's probably still some innovation we can add, and we can create something that can attract new audiences. And at the same time, I think that we can do it in a way that is not cannibalizing on traditional formats of museums. So like going back to what these two men were talking in terms of great food, architecture and wine, but there's no innovation. To me, there are so many interesting places to see and so many untold stories that deserve to be told. They're equally interesting compared to what you find in traditional museums. And I think that, to me, it's really like a lot of underutilized assets. But it's very difficult to make these, places and stories to be engaging if you just, walk on the street and just, admire it. But I think, if you can put it in a certain context and present it on a digital platform, when you add stories, but you also add users, this is when the storytelling comes much more appealing, and this is where also the engaging sort of the magic happens, and this is when people can interact with the content because there's another person, another user behind, and you can follow that user, you can save something which you find as an interesting aspect, and then you can complement that experience by going to the actual museum to find the same or like complementary experience. So here, just a couple of examples. Obviously, there's famous, a couple of famous examples of Art Nouveau in Paris. There's a picture, showing a beautiful old pharmacy. Some collectibles, I am a big fan of Swedish Grace design period, and to me, all of that represents stories that deserve to be told, and they are equally micro museum experiences. And this is, by the way, what we call the experiences at Magnificent Platform. It's micro museum experiences because it's no stories told by the users. So it's user created, but it's also user curated because it's the users, they can decide according to the preference of what they want to see, what they want to, what they want to explore more. So some features that we are working on. We wanted to mimic the experience that you find with museums. So we have 3 user types. The users can be visitors, so that's the people who sign and they can just view the content. But there are also user types which are creators, and creators obviously have the ability to create the stories. You need to enroll, apply to become a creator. It's not a very restrictive process, but we wanted to have a process where we want to vet people who create something because we wanted to assure the quality of the content and to build trust. And there's also this user type mecenas, basically people who want to fund, sponsor the creators. So it's a way for offering a slow and meaningful content, which is kind of an alternative to traditional social media, but at the same time offering some more contextual experience, and it could be cultural and historical topics. And it's also a way to empower creators, but also the experts to start creating stories. So we're looking into features, by adding like a toolkit for creators when you can source images. The images are being integrated with, for instance, Europina, but there are also many other museums which are offering APIs. So the creators that don't have images can source that, but they can also, they can just create stories, add experts' opinions, but also trying to look into offering these creators ways to get rewarded for the things that they do. Some creators obviously have, they can offer subscription-based models. Many creators are dependent on platforms like Patreon, but we think that there should be an possibility for creators to be rewarded for what they're doing. And also, as I said, to me, to make a platform an exploration of historical heritage engaging, you need to have people behind the creators, but also people who view. And we want to connect the platform to different social media platforms. And there's like a new concept of decentralized platforms called the Fediverse. So once you enter the Fediverse, your content can be viewed by many other viewers on the other platforms. And then you decide, how do you want to engage, which one to follow, and so. It's just the last slide now, I think. It all boils down to the fact that there's definitely a need for new content. I've been watching the Netflix documentary Social Dilemma, and I just wanted to have a platform which is more than that, away from feed and brain rot, and offering something more as an alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anu. That was so fascinating. I love to hear about all the new ways of sharing the untold stories. And I'm a little bit heartbroken because I wanted to ask my wonderful speakers a series of questions, but unfortunately we are out of time. And we really need to move to auditorium for the wrap-up session, physically and online. But before that, thank you again for the wonderful talks. And all the slides are going to be shared with all the participants, so you will reach the speakers if you had some questions. And yeah, thank you so much. And I invite everyone now to move to the auditorium.